Just ahead, there's another edition of the Florida Roundtable, a service of Florida's Talk and Entertainment Networks and of Tough TV. I'm Reagan Smith, Public Affairs Director of the Florida News Network.
And I'm political analyst Al Spry. We have all kinds of things to talk about, Reagan. Government shutdowns and debt ceilings and all kinds of stuff, not to mention Florida politics like we like to do.
One of the notions that I had, Al, is that the Roundtable is certainly not shut down, and we've got plenty to say, and we are going to say it in the hour ahead. So we'll invite you to put an ear on the radio. The Florida Roundtable begins following these messages. This is the Florida Roundtable, a service of Florida's Talk and Entertainment Networks and of Tough TV in the Orlando area. I'm Reagan Smith, Public Affairs Director of the Florida News Network.
And I'm political analyst Al Spry. Of course, great to be with you, Reagan, and it's great to be with you as well. All of our 80 stations across Florida and Tough TV. And, of course, you can watch us on Tough TV. We air Thursdays and Saturday mornings at 9 on Tough TV 38 in Orlando. You can receive Tough TV over the air with an antenna in select apartment complexes and mobile home parks in Central Florida. And, of course, Tough TV is also carried on Channel 69 on the Summit Broadband cable TV system. If you don't receive our programming, ask your cable system or satellite provider to carry Tough TV today.
There you go. And we guarantee that Al and I will not break the screen when we... Scary, but we don't break the screen.
No, because we're pretty.
There you go.
We're pretty loopy anyway.
Oh, well.
The winner of the week, politically, we'll just kick it off with that.
All right.
In Florida would be Marco Rubio.
Uh-huh.
He hasn't offered an alternative plan. He seemed as caught off guard as most Florida polls by the prospect of dramatic flood insurance increases as a result of the Biggert Waters Flood Insurance Reform Act. But at least the Republican senator can brag about voting against the bill, not necessarily because of any concerns about flood insurance, but because it was tucked into the sort of sweeping transportation spending bill Rubio consistently opposes. Kind of a two-for-one deal right there as far as that goes. Bill Gunter's the loser of the week. The race to succeed Republican Mike Fasano in the state house seems too close for confidence on either side. But a West Pasco district that adored Fasano's independent streak, Amanda Murphy, had a big week. Fasano, after saying he would not endorse in the race, announced that he had voted early for Murphy, then for Gunter. Boy, it's a little shot against Gunter there. And another popular figure there, Charlie Crist, campaigned for Murphy. So there you go. He's the loser.
I'm going to show my age here.
Yeah.
I remember when Bill Gunter was a Democratic United States Senator from the state of Florida.
Is that right?
We should distinguish here. This is not the Bill Gunter that was the U.S. Senator.
Oh, no. This is loser. This is just loser Bill Gunter.
And this was a Democrat. I mean, so
all these guys with similar names,
That was more than 6 months ago, but Gunter has been a very popular name. He was in the cabinet, and he was a U.S. Senator. We're going back into the early Lawton Childs, Bob Graham era here with Bill Gunter, and even before that. So
here's some new appointments at the Department of Agriculture by our friend Agriculture Commissioner Adam Putnam, who we've had on the show quite a few times. He's got 5 appointments in the department. Alan Edwards has been named Director of Administration. Derek Buchanan, who joined the department in 2008, has been named Director of Policy and Budget. Brooke McKnight has been promoted to Cabinet Affairs Director. Jessica Field started working as Deputy Cabinet Affairs Director, and she was most recently an environmental consultant. And John Reese has been named to Deputy Legislative Affairs Director. I wonder what those jobs pay. We should petition. Maybe we can be some directors of something.
I hope that you were taking notes on that, because we're going to have a quiz at the end of in the last segment. We're going to have a quiz.
And Whitney Ray, who's been press secretary for the Department of Children and Families, has joined Attorney General Pam Bondi's office as press secretary. So there you go. There's a couple of movers and shakers there we like to tell you about. And
shuffling of the PR people in Tallahassee.
Absolutely. We'll move into the more of the national arena in our next segment. We're talking about all the buffoonery, as I like to call it, going on in Washington, D.C. People not wanting to move from their entrenched positions on the extremes there. Don't know what's going to happen with that, but we'll talk more about that in the upcoming segment.
Absolutely, it's an amazing time and interesting times, and we'll hopefully we'll stimulate some thought in your head about what is going on Capitol Hill. Well, this is the Florida Roundtable. I'm Reagan Smith,
And I'm Al Spry.
and we'll continue our conversation following these messages. You're listening to the Florida Roundtable, a service of Florida's Talk and Entertainment Networks and of Tough TV in the Orlando area. I'm Reagan Smith.
And I'm Al Spry.
And we trust you know who you are. We thank you for the pleasure of your company this day. All right, onward, Al, to the national scene for a few minutes here. The national scene, or lack thereof, of what's on the national scene.
Well, you know, Reagan, we have quite a situation in Washington. We are in a partial government shutdown. You can't go to the Washington Monument, can't go to any monuments. Interesting
Unless you're
story.
a World War II vet.
Yes, and you heard about that story last week.
It happened several times.
Let's talk a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about that because here are our servicemen and women from the greatest generation, as Tom Brokaw put it, who served valiantly in World War II. These guys are about 88, 89, and into their 90s. The youngest is about 88 at this point. They won't be around in 10 years, 15 years.
Right.
These guys want to see the monument dedicated to their service.
And people in their communities raised funds to fly them to Washington for free.
Yes, those are called
these charitable fund, the freedom flights or whatever they call them.
They call them. They're the honor flights that are taking off. In fact, there's contingent not long ago left from Orlando to go to the World War II Memorial, which was a long time in coming, by the way, Reagan.
It was way overdue.
Way overdue. And now that the World War II vets have a memorial, they should be allowed to see it.
Yeah.
There were some World War II vets who were turned away at first. Remember, this is all a political game.
Yeah.
The government shutdown is all a game, too. 83% of the government is still running. That's why it's a partial government shutdown. But what the administration is trying to do is to cause the most visual manifestation of the shutdown as far as inconvenience to the average American as can be possible, so that the average American will write their congressman and say, pass a deal so that we can get the government running again. Yeah. So we have World War II vets who were not able to see at first their monument, their memorial, because there was a big sign and gate saying, because the government shut down, go back home.
I loved it when I saw one of the veterans on national TV saying that he fought at Iwo Jima. And he would be damned if a little police barricade was going to keep him away from the World War II monument.
That's great. They just don't make them like that anymore, you know. But the larger issue is how long this farce is going to continue. Because things are being held up. There still are many, many thousands of furloughed workers. Furloughed, they're not getting paid, but the bills are still coming in.
Yeah, you know, and I'm wondering, and I never saw an explanation, and I read extensively on this, when Chuck Hagel, the defense secretary, called back over 400,000 people that initially were furloughed. Mm-hmm. I never saw any kind of an explanation on how he was figuring on doing that, how that was going to work. Well, they were sent home, and then he called them back. I thought we didn't have the money to pay them.
Well, the story that I saw about that was the way that the original law was written to fund part of the government, including the Defense Department and so forth, had a line in there, which obviously there's a lot of lawyers in the Congress. That should tell you something right there. Yeah. They decided that was enough of a loophole, saying the wording.
Okay.
Included a stipulation that more could be called back, and if it's a national, for security and so forth and so on. So they use that to go, oh yeah, well we meant you, but we didn't mean you. Come back.
Yeah. Okay.
But like I said, 83% of the government is still running.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
And this is, I think it's important we remember that the United States government is the biggest employer in the world. The world, over 2 million employees. And by the time that you do the trickle down on the subcontractors and all that other stuff, it's just incredible. I mean, it's mind-boggling the number of people that work for the United States government. Abraham Lincoln got through the whole Civil War with 2 personal secretaries that he paid out of his own pocket. I rest my case.
Yes. It's well put, and it really goes to the Republican argument, which is government has gotten too big, and do we really want it getting bigger with the Obamacare? And then, of course, there are people on the other side who say, well, this is the law of the land, upheld by the Supreme Court, and further upheld by the re-election of Obama. If it was such a big deal, why did Obama win the election? Why wasn't it Romney who would have put a kibosh on the whole thing? So we have Obamacare, and we have a small group of Republicans who don't like Obamacare, and they are representing, now the House is being unified, but really we're only talking about, 53 Republicans or so
Something like that,
are the Tea Party contingent.
Yeah.
So these guys really don't like Obamacare. I mean, they are so against it that even though they're the position of the minority, they're, of course, gumming up the works, which they have the right to do so if everyone wants to play that game.
Well, and they are. Did you happen to hear the quote this past week from an unnamed source within the administration, which the Obama people backed away from so fast the skid marks are still on the sidewalk? Quoted nationally as saying, "We're winning." Oops. Open mouth, insert foot.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've seen that on both sides. I saw another open mic on the Republican side saying, I think it was between McConnell and Paul, saying, we're winning. We've
from Rand Paul.
Both sides think that they're winning, but really, we're at a complete standstill. Nobody's winning. The American people are losing because the market's going down. There's uncertainty both nationally and internationally. This doesn't look good for the United States. This is very petty. I think the way to achieve your legislative goals, at least the way I learned it going to school, Reagan, is you win elections, then you have a majority in your branch, in your part of, say, you become majority in the House, majority in the Senate, majority in the presidency. Well, then you could pass whatever you want. Then there's no problems. But when you have the minority position and you still want to achieve your legislative goals, it gets trickier. So we have both sides, neither one willing to compromise. This is the president's landmark achievement. He's not going to compromise on Obamacare. The frickin' thing's named Obamacare. And then you have, of course, members of one branch of Congress who are holding up the works. And the problem is we have this debt ceiling that's upcoming. And we have this thing, it's just looming.
Well, let me say something. Let me make an observation historically before we get into that. I was in college in the Lyndon Johnson years, and like the vast majority of college students, we were no fans of Lyndon Johnson. Mm-hmm. Lyndon Johnson was a politician with a capital P, professional politician. That was his entire life. And the Republican and coming past the assassination of John Kennedy, the Democrats controlled all 3 branches of the government overwhelmingly, House and Senate, and they had the presidency. But there were splits in the Democrat Party in those years. And Lyndon Johnson needed Republican votes, even though they were a minority in the Senate, to get through. And the record shows Everett McKinley Dirksen was the Senate Minority Leader, the senator from Illinois with a marvelous deep voice. Lyndon Johnson he loved the telephone. They said he had it growing out of his ear. It was constantly on the phone. He called Ev Dirksen every day to talk politics and issues and ensure that he could get some of those Republican votes to get through what he wanted to do. The art of compromise, talk. You have to talk to each other. Hi, guys. As far as I can see, a lot of our leadership is absent without leave.
Yes.
They're sitting on the sidelines.
And that
includes the president.
I agree. The president needs, how many years have we said this, Reagan? The president needs to show some leadership.
Yeah.
Real leadership. Not
yeah.
the type of leadership that sounds like he's running for office again, because he can't run for office anymore. He's done after this.
Yeah.
We need the president to show the kind of leadership that says, I'm willing to compromise on some aspects to keep the whole thing rolling. All right? Because that's the way it's supposed to work.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, I was listening to an interview with Dennis Hastert, who was the speaker from 9907. And he said when they were trying to make a deal with Clinton over a budget decrease. And he went to Clinton. They would talk. See, that's the first thing. They would talk. And he said, Bill, we want a 1% across the board decrease in the budget. And Bill said, oh, I think that's a little bit rich,
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
What about well, thank you, Reagan. What about a 0.25 reduction? And so one guy went high end, one guy went low end. They met about 0.83 decrease it ended up being. But Hastert made the point of saying, we talked. That's what Obama needs to do with Boehner to get this thing ironed out. One way or another, if you have this impasse past the point where we're supposed to raise the debt ceiling, we're going to have the same thing that happened with the credit rating drop from Standard & Poor's that happened the last time this nonsense occurred. People are continuing to lose confidence in their government. And what happens when people lose confidence? They don't buy new cars. They don't buy new houses. They don't buy toys. They don't buy electronics. They don't buy furniture. They don't buy anything. Because they get put into a state of fear.
Well, and you put your finger on it. The stoppage begins with the big ticket items. You said it, the cars, refrigerators, your stove, things like that, household appliances. The big ticket items go down the drain first.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, I'll tell you who else isn't showing leadership ability, John Boehner.
Right.
John Boehner is not showing leadership ability. John Boehner should go to his House members and say, look, guys, we need a united front. Now he's doing it, but he's not a Tea Partier. That's the thing. Boehner, I think, is more willing to work on a compromise, but he's being waylaid by the Tea Party group.
Yeah.
Or, here we have 435 members of the House. We have 53 holding the whole thing hostage. Mm-hmm. To me, there's something askew here, Reagan. Yeah. Something's not smelling right in all this. Yeah. Boehner needs to go, look, guys, this is not the fight right now. The fight is over other things are reducing government, but Obamacare is done. Let's move on. Yeah. Yeah. And unfortunately, neither one of these leaders is showing any leadership ability.
Time for us to pause, but let me just insert here that it was 17, close to 20 years ago when this happened the last time, and Bill Clinton was the president. And coming out of that, it was the Democratic president, Bill Clinton, who said to us, the era of big government is over. This is the Florida Roundtable. I'm Reagan Smith.
And I'm Al Spry.
We'll continue our conversation following these messages. From Pensacola to Key West and all points in between, you're listening to the Florida Roundtable, a service of Florida's Talk and Entertainment Networks and of Tough TV 38 in the Orlando area. I'm Reagan Smith.
And I'm Al Spry.
Again, we say thank you for the pleasure of your company. We know you have lots of choices out there, and we are delighted that you have seen fit to spend a few minutes with us and then listen to some of this conversation about, as Al said, the buffoonery that we observe almost week in and week out, but especially taken to a new level here in recent days.
Well, it gives talk show hosts like us quite a bit of fodder to mull over. And I hope there are some members of Congress listening to the show that maybe
I have a feeling there are, yes.
They might be able to maybe get some ideas. That's what we do here. We don't just analyze, we provide cogent, well thought out, reasoned explanations and ideas of working these things out.
I like that. That's good.
You like that?
I like that.
It's the highest level of BS on this show. We don't go to any second level. There are no substandard levels. No. So, Reagan, you had a great idea.
Well, the debt ceiling is closing in upon us, even as a pox wall. Is that? Yeah, I guess
a pox on both our houses,
something like that.
Yes.
But in any event, we have not had a budget in this country since 2009, something like that. And no matter how many times we talk about it, somebody will say, "What the hell is a CR?" And I thought we ought to take a moment and explain what that is, and we can take a look at this budget ceiling. CR is a continuing resolution. There's no agreement on how much money the government is going to spend, and so they go back to the last budget, and they all agree we'll just keep spending at that level for another 90 days or whatever they happen to agree on, and they call that a continuing resolution. So that's how we've been operating for the last 4 years. They haven't been able to put together budgets, and there's an awful lot of blame to go around in that, too.
Absolutely. Blame is on both sides in this. We have, let's take it back a little bit. How did we get here? Briefly. Well, we've already spent the money. When they talk about raising the debt ceiling, this is already debt that's been spent. This is debt that's been incurred. So the money's been spent.
Right.
This is so that we don't default on our obligations.
Right.
Kind of like when you default on paying a credit card. Well, you don't pay the credit card, and then they get mad at you and send the collection agencies after you and stuff, right?
Right.
Well, when you have a budget, this is that's money already been spent. Sometimes people think, oh, this is money they're going to spend. No, this has already been done. Raising the debt ceiling, which used to be a no big deal thing, Reagan.
I know.
They would just pass it.
Yeah.
No muss, no fuss, no politics. And, well, if we don't pass this ceiling, if we don't raise the ceiling, then we're going to default on our obligations, which then, in turn, makes the U.S. a deadbeat internationally.
Our credit rating is lowered. We have less ability to borrow money to continue to pay the debts.
Correct. And then no one wants to hold our notes, and then we go into economic free fall, and it's not good. There are repercussions to these politics that can be quite dangerous, especially to our fragile economic recovery that's been going on for the last few years. We have seen some recovery. It's been a mixed bag, but does anyone really want to see a repeat of 2008, but tripled?
Of course not.
No,
of
course not.
One of the scary things to me, and you can take the reports from the Congressional Budget Office. You can take them with a grain of sand or salt if you want, but they are usually fairly authoritative. The Congressional Budget Office does a reasonably good job, and they are now forecasting that if we don't do something, that the publicly held national debt is going to be equivalent to the entire gross national product by the year 2038. That has never happened before in our entire history, and God knows what repercussions. Our debt would equal the entire gross national product. Is that where we want to be?
No, of course not. And, we don't want to be where I believe it's 1/6 of us, or 1/6 of the country is below poverty level now?
Sure, yeah.
And it's rising?
Yeah.
We have 1/3 of the country pretty much out of work.
Yep.
If you count people that have already given up looking for jobs. The situation is this, okay? It's a pretty easy equation. We need people to make money in order to pay taxes to help fund government programs, which people like. If they didn't like them, we wouldn't have seen a re-election of Obama. And remember, this is not just on one side. Republicans have also been in favor of increasing the government size, even though they say otherwise. Remember, George Bush passed Medicare Part D, the prescription drug addition to Medicare.
Yep.
Oh, it's a government program. Okay. So this is not just one or the other. Yes, Democrats generally favor larger government and government programs, but Republicans have been marching along with Democrats for many years in raising the size of government. But not only that, Reagan, we don't have the jobs to support the size of the government that the Republicans and Democrats want.
And as healthcare improves, people live longer. Nobody planned on that. We now, the fastest growing segment of the population is people 100 and older.
Yes.
You know.
And they're all collecting Social Security. They're collecting Medicare. They're collecting Medicaid if they're under a certain income level.
Once you give a person an entitlement, it is very difficult to take it back.
Absolutely.
You know.
Well, look at Congress. Look at all the stuff they get in entitlements.
Yeah.
They get free health care. They get retirement benefits. I don't get retirement benefits.
No.
They do.
No. Yeah,
they get full pension after 2 terms as a congressman and 1 term as a senator. You get full retirement at your wage.
I wish we could do that after 4 or 6 years.
I'm telling you. I'd like to do it after 20, but what pensions?
No, yeah, that's right.
So
that's right.
Here's the thing. You have a class of people who happen to be in the government. This class of people thinks that they are above everybody. The last vestiges of 18th century, like we used to talk about, of that oligarchy, that high level that has never left us. It just takes different forms.
The French
right?
Bourbons.
Correct. So you have these people, and they might say, well, we're the people, men of the people and women of the people. No, they're not. They go into politics because they think that they're pretty hot stuff, and they should be treated at a higher level. So what do? They love power. So they make the government bigger. It's not just Democrats, it's Republicans too. So they've made this enormous, they've co-opted and made this enormous government, which gives them power to use through the IRS, through the NSA, through the CIA, through various channels, through the FBI. They love it. They relish it. It's great. It's awesome. Now, they take all this power. They want to keep this power, even though the Republicans say that they want smaller government. That's debatable. But then now you do have this group of Tea Partiers who really does want smaller government, and they're holding the whole works up. Yeah. So that's really the story here, Reagan.
Yeah, I just a thought running through my mind was, for years we have said the very first rule of politics is always be strong for something that nobody can be against. We're going to take care of you. We're going to help you. We're your friends. Who could possibly be against that? Always be strong for something that nobody can be against. I am in favor of war. Wait a minute. No, we don't come out and say that, do we? No, we want peace.
That's why it's the Department of Defense, not the Department of War.
Yeah.
But think about this, okay? Let's say we want all these government programs like they have in Europe. Let's take Germany for an example, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Germany has the economy to make it work because the economic output is so great, 3rd or 4th in the world.
Yep.
That they can afford all these government programs and everybody's happy. The French, one of the larger powers as well. 4-day work week. Everybody gets free health care. We have pensions. Because they decided, we want these programs, but we're going to fund the programs. Now, America, we send all our jobs to China and India. We send all jobs to Mexico and Southeast Asia. We send our jobs everywhere else but America, and we're supposed to be funding programs? It doesn't work that way. That's why we have a $17 trillion deficit. It's happened over the last 30, 35 years. We've given away the golden goose.
Yeah. Just like a locomotive charging down the tracks without any brakes. And scary thought. Well, let us pause again along the network line. We'll remind you that this is the Florida Roundtable. I'm Reagan Smith.
And I'm Al Spry.
And we'll continue in a moment. We are back. You're listening to the Florida Roundtable, the service of Florida's Talk and Entertainment Networks. I'm Reagan Smith.
And I'm Al Spry.
And, we've covered quite a bit of territory here, Al. Now that we have resolved all the presidents and the congressional problems. How about we come back and take a look at some more of the things that are going on closer to home right here in Florida?
Yes, of course. So we do love to talk about Florida. Florida never lets us down either as far as news goes because it is one wacky state, but it's a wacky state we love.
FLORI-DUH, Florida.
And, of course, our illustrious Grand Poobah, Governor Rick Scott, who we've had on the show a few times and here in person once. He stood before a group of realtors in Clearwater on last week. He used the spike in federal flood insurance rates to do what has become his weekly mantra, and that is blame President Obama. Never mind that it was congressional inaction that allowed a key provision in the Federal Flood Insurance Act to take effect, despite misgivings about the unintended consequences by most of its supporters. Scott accused the president of threatening to cripple Florida's real estate recovery by failing to stop rates from rising. And, of course, he is going to be seeking re-election. This is a given next year. The Republican governor, whose favorable rating hovers below 40% in most polls, not very good, has found a favorite, equally vulnerable target in the nation's Democratic president.
Okay.
With Obama only slightly more popular than Rick Scott, Scott loses nothing by bashing the president. He plays to his base, and that's it.
Yeah.
He is on a roll.
And we can expect a lot more of that in the coming months.
And, of course, we see that he'll likely square off against Charlie Crist.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And part of the strategy will be the same one employed by Marco Rubio when he defeated Crist, then an independent in the 2010 Senate race. He must link Crist to Obama every chance he gets. You'll be seeing more of the hug. Remember the hug video?
Oh, yeah.
And still.
No.
Scott's blamed Obama for federal budget cuts to Florida's National Guard troops. He's complained about the president's failure in launching the Affordable Care Act. Of course, Scott's to blame there, too, remember? Scott's been stonewalling the Obamacare thing forever.
Right.
But, it plays, like you say, it's politics. It plays good to the base. So
Sure.
We'll continue to see that. And, of course, the governor scored a big campaign contribution from the Jaguars owner, Reagan.
Oh, really? That's my mind went blank. His name,
Shahid
yes.
Shad Khan, the guy with the big mustache.
Yes.
Who can't run a team to save his life. The Jaguars are 0-5.
The Jaguars are looking up to see the bottom of the heap.
Now don't don't you? It's like the Colts a few years ago.
Yeah.
The Jaguars. You would think that Mr. Khan would spend $250,000. It would be better spent in maybe improving his team.
Yeah. Well.
However, we're not seeing that. We're just seeing him support Rick Scott. I think that the Jaguars are losers, and I think Rick Scott's going to end up being a loser. I think we're going to reelect Crist, but that's my prediction. Early in the game.
Okay.
Early in the game. Reagan, what's your early prediction? Come on, we won't hold each other to it.
Well, I don't know. I think that the race will actually probably tighten up considerably, and as we go along. It looks as though Charlie Crist would be an easy winner if the election was held today. But I do believe that with Crist's financial capability, they will tighten it up, and we'll see it. I think it's going to be a good race when we come right down to the final few days.
It's a very political answer, Reagan, but I'll let you have that one. I'm just playing. Really, it comes down to here's what Scott has in his favor right now. Economy is continuing to improve in Florida as it is nationally. Well, at least until the debt ceiling, crashes or whatever, which we hope doesn't happen. But what we're seeing also is Crist is still a powerful force to be reckoned with. Popular governor. So it's going to be pretty close. Rick Scott has personal numbers that are really against him. Like I say, 40% approval rate. Pretty low. So it will remains to be seen. Also, our website is being updated. I'll tell you folks a little bit about this.
Okay.
We're trying to get our own website for Florida Roundtable. So, in the meantime, myflanews.com, which we were promoting, goes to a local radio station, which can confuse some people. So what we want to promote instead is just, if you want to email us, Reagan Smith at clearchannel.com and Al Spry at clearchannel.com is great ways to get in touch with us.
Yeah.
We'll have this new revamped website up shortly where you'll be able to access archived shows and so forth. So I just wanted to update you on that. That's why you haven't heard much about the website.
All right. Well, let us take one final pause along the network line here. We'll remind you that this is the Florida Roundtable. I'm Reagan Smith.
I'm Al Spry.
And we'll be back with a closing thought following these messages. This is the Florida Roundtable, a service of Florida's Talk and Entertainment Networks and of Tough TV in the Orlando area. I'm Reagan Smith.
And I'm Al Spry.
And we do say thank you for all your time this day. And Al, we got a couple of minutes left here to take a look at a couple other little items that are going on that we wanted to comment on.
We have a diverse state here in Florida. We had our first Hispanic Senator Mel Martinez a few years ago. He got tired of all the politics, though, and left early. Now, of course, we have the very photogenic Marco Rubio. Additionally, we have the RNC, the Republican National Committee, trying to have a Hispanic outreach. Remember, folks, that the Hispanic population in America is growing. It's roughly about a third right now. It's going to become the majority within a generation or two.
Yeah.
So we have, of course, the Republican Party has had an issue with that. They're still kind of seen as the older white guys party, which is problematic when you're trying to reach out to a diverse population. So in response to that, we have the RNC is naming new Hispanic outreach staffers. A former aide to State Senator Antieri Flores from Miami has been named Florida State Hispanic Director for the RNC. Alex Garcia, who will work with the state GOP, is among three staffers the RNC will have in the state as it seeks to build ties with Hispanics, a group Republicans have struggled with.
Yeah, you know, and this is a thing that I was thinking about that on the way in today, going back, and a lot of this problem started in California when immigration was more of a problem on the West Coast than it was in Texas or in Florida. And you may, if you think back across the years, there were a string of Republican governors, starting with Ronald Reagan in 1968. They couldn't lose in California. 4, 5, 6 of them in a row, serving 8 years apiece, you know. And then they got into this business of immigration, and they put their foot in it. And except for Arnold Schwarzenegger, they haven't been able to elect a Republican governor in California since. And you know, Schwarzenegger got it because of his name, not particularly because of, I mean, his movie background got him into that. And it's a problem. And you know, as I've lectured on this, as recently as 1932. Black voters were voting 80% Republican. In the election of 1932, Herbert Hoover's going to lose in a landslide, and Franklin Roosevelt only got 20% of the black vote. He went out and made a concerted campaign to attract the black vote to the Democratic Party. And by 1936, he got 51% of the black vote. Now, I think the Republicans, if they're going to make any kind of honest effort at all, need to go back and study some history.
Absolutely. And additionally, what the Republicans need to do and understand, well, there's been a shift in the paradigm. The Republican Party was the party of Lincoln. It was formed because it was the antithesis, the other party from the Democrats. And the Democrats were always in the South. Of course, you had the Whigs, too, and you had other parties. But the Democrats, and it flip-flopped. So there has to be outreach. I look back to Reagan and the big tent. Yeah, that's all.
Yeah,
the big tent.
I think you've put your finger right on it, and I think to a large extent the Republicans have lost sight of that. So, all right. Well, once again, we say thank you for your time this day. We hope you have enjoyed our observations and comments. We'd like to hear from you. I'm Reagan Smith.
I'm Al Spry.
We'll see you again in 1 week with another edition of the Florida Roundtable.
You've been listening to Florida Roundtable, a weekly look at issues and problems of concern to Floridians from a state, national, and international perspective. Presented by the Florida News Network with your hosts, Reagan Smith and Al Spry. The views and opinions expressed during the preceding program are solely those of the participants and not necessarily those of this station's ownership, management, or sponsors of FNN. Your views and opinions are welcome. Address your card or letter to Florida Roundtable in care of Reagan Smith, 2500 Maitland Center Parkway, Suite 407, Maitland, Florida, 32751. Or you may email reagansmith@fnnonline.com. Thank you for listening, and please join us again next week for another edition of Florida Roundtable.